Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day number 6 of the Races and Fun Widowmaker Tournament. Here's the first group for day number 6, which has the Chrysler 300C, the Cadillac CN, the Cadillac V16, and the Off-Track. Again, hopefully I'm pronouncing all those names correctly. I want to do each racer justice as best I can. In the first race, the Off-Track currently has the lead, and they go around that turn, and the other three slow down a little bit, but the Cadillac CN and the Chrysler end up passing the Off-Track. And now the two of them are fighting for first place as they go down that straightaway. The Chrysler is trying to find an opening, so far being blocked by the Cadillac, who uses a little bit of a momentum shift to go a little bit faster and gain that speed needed to hopefully stay in first. And they don't, actually. After going over that hill, the Cadillac loses enough speed to the point where it looks like they won't even finish. But they do get nudged forward, allowing them to still finish in second despite all that. The Chrysler found the opening they needed after that jump, and they finished in first. So they will be the racer here to try and stay undefeated. And as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, we have now gone 5 whole videos without an undefeated racer going into the grand finals. Usually by now we have at least 3 or 4, but as of right now we still have 0. But after that first finish, the Chrysler 300C has the first win. So they will now be fighting to stay undefeated and hopefully be the first racer to do so in this tournament. They are starting in the back row, but sometimes, just because you start in the back doesn't mean you'll stay there. The Cadillac CN and the Off-Track are the two that start out in front after that first turn. The Cadillac is trying to hold on to the lead this time, and the Off-Track is staying right close to them. In fact, the Off-Track gained a burst of speed, bumping right into the back of the Cadillac, who then used that moment to go even faster like they did before. They go around that last turn, up the hill, and they end up going sideways vertically, ending up on their backs, and the Off-Track went clean past them, allowing them to finish in first. So this group will not provide any undefeated racers. In fact, I think the Off-Track might be the only finisher. Yeah, the other Cadillac and the Chrysler ended up causing a traffic jam further up the track, and then the Cadillac CN didn't finish at all. Well, they almost did, but because of that jump up there and the way they landed, they stopped right there. The Off-Track almost pushed them forward, but they managed to find just enough of a gap to navigate around them, which is very helpful for them because now they are in the lead of points with 6. Into race number 3, the Cadillac CN is currently in first, and the Off-Track is right next to the Chrysler. As they go around that turn, the Chrysler just edges out the Off-Track, but the Off-Track might be able to find another opening still. And they almost do that, but around that turn, he lost so much momentum colliding into the Chrysler, and the Chrysler is now the one going up against the Cadillac CN, who used a similar technique to get a bigger lead in first. And ladies and gentlemen, that might have been the best jump I've seen in this tournament so far. Clear into the air, very smooth landing, no bouncing whatsoever as far as I could tell. Meanwhile, among these racers, the Cadillac V16 did finish in second. I believe they're going to give that to Off-Track, even though he's not all the way over the finish line. I believe as long as the majority of your vehicle finishes, it still counts. But look at this jump. That was very smooth. I love that jump. That's probably my favorite one in this tournament as of now. There was very little spinning, if any at all. They landed on the ground without bouncing, and they just kept going like nothing happened. At least up until they got to that wall where they spun out. But hey, the jump itself, very clean. But the Chrysler actually got stuck there. And despite being nudged by the other two, they still will not finish, and they do give it to the Off-Track, finishing in third. So now we have one more heat. Who has the most points? It is currently actually 2 racers are tied for the lead in points, that being the Cadillac CN and the off-track, while the other two only have 5. It's still technically anyone's game. It all depends on how you finish in this race. And right now the off-track is in the lead. And his current point rival, the Cadillac CN, is back in 3rd currently. The off-track just needs to stay straight, which they are struggling to do going around that turn. They picked themselves back up a little bit, but they almost actually flipped over the Cadillac CN as they bounced into the back of them. And the Cadillac CN, I think, finished in 2nd. It was relatively close between him and the Chrysler, but I think they're probably going to get that to the Cadillac. Yeah, look at that. It looked like the Cadillac CN might have actually had a decent landing, but because he collided with the off-track on the way down, that might have been what caused him to flip over. He did get nudged forward, so he still finishes in 2nd, I think. I think they're going to give it to him. Yes, they will, and as a result, the off-track and the Cadillac CN will be moving on. Who will join him in the 2nd group? Let's find out. The 71 Plymouth, the 10 Shelby, the Bugatti Veyron, and the Paradox. I try to look up the names of these vehicles now ahead of time so I know how to properly pronounce them. And if I'm still getting them wrong, I apologize. But now we get into this first race with this group, and right now the Paradox is out in front. Meanwhile, the Plymouth and the Veyron are fighting for 2nd place. Not sure where the Shelby is currently, but I'm sure we'll find out, even if they don't finish by the end of the race. Right now, the Paradox actually has a really big lead, and they take advantage of that, take their time going over that hill, and they finish in 1st. So now they will be the one in contention for being undefeated. Meanwhile, the Bugatti finishes in 2nd. Will we have anyone else? It's hard to say right now. I personally do not see anybody. Oh wait, there's the Shelby. They finish in 3rd, which makes you wonder what happened to the Plymouth. They did end up on their back, but not where most of the racers usually do so. Usually, if anyone winds up on their back, it's after they go through this jump here. But somehow they wound up on their backs way up there. So they are not in a good spot if that's what's going to happen to them that far up the track. And the Shelby took clear advantage of that, and despite only finishing in 3rd, it's definitely a good place to start, at least by comparison. The Paradox finished with an 18.15. I don't think anybody has beaten the Batmobile fastest time so far from day 3, which actually broke the 16-second mark with about a 15.6692. Some racers have gotten relatively close, or at least finished within a 16-point-something, but I think the Batmobile is the only one to finish under 16 seconds so far. Into heat number 2. Now it's the Paradox trying to stay undefeated. They are starting in the back, but they're pushing the Shelby forward, trying to gain any sort of momentum they can get right from the start. But right now they are actually in 4th, as the Bugatti is now the one in the lead, followed closely by the other 3. They're actually forming a bit of a train, using a bit of drafting as they get closer and closer. And now here comes the Plymouth, trying to pass the Bugatti, but ends up passing his momentum to him. And they go around the turn, the Bugatti goes up the hill and flies off the track. It looked pretty smooth from my angle, but I guess he was going to the side just enough to the point where he flies clean off. A very harsh accident going over the side of that hill. He at least ended up back on his feet by the time it was all said and done. But a non-finish is definitely really painful, especially in a tournament like this. They did kind of grind over the rail a little bit, but they did not finish. And now, the Shelby finished in 3rd yet again, and the Paradox, because of the Bugatti flying over the side, was able to finish in 1st yet again. Just 2 more races I was about to say racers, but races going into the finals. And one more win in order to automatically go to the finals. Once again, starting out in the back row, but they have the tighter turn here. And they start off in third as a result, but they do spin around relatively quickly, slowing down significantly. So now it's between the Plymouth and the Shelby, but the Plymouth bouncing off the walls a little bit, but they are gaining a decent-sized lead over this. But here comes the Paradox. He's suddenly picking up speed. He might have passed the Shelby, might not have. It was hard to tell. No, they didn't. The Shelby is still in front of them, and the Plymouth stops the Paradox's undefeated streak after just the third race. Speaking of third, that's where the Paradox finished. And the Shelby actually finished in second that time. Meanwhile, the Bugatti got stuck way up there. At least they weren't on their backs, like the Plymouth was earlier. But not finishing regardless of how is a massive blow to your chances to move on. And because the Shelby has been relatively consistent, they might still have a shot. Sometimes even if you don't finish the best, if you finish the most consistent, that still can really help you. And right now, after that second place finish, the Shelby has 7 points. And in comparison to the other racers, the Plymouth has 8, and the Paradox has 12. So it's more than likely that the Paradox will be moving on at this point. The Shelby could still take the second place spot from the Plymouth. And this is actually a possibility, but right now it is a little hard to do. Because it is the Paradox out in front who can get the most points from finishing in first, obviously. So it's all just dependent on who finishes where. Because the Paradox could have gone off the track after that jump, but he did not, and he finished in first. 3 out of 4 races finishing in first, but because of that one third place finish, he will not be undefeated. The Plymouth finished in second, the Bugatti in third, and the Shelby, will they finish at all? They will! But I don't think it's going to be enough. It was really close. They were really consistent up until that last race. If they could have stayed as consistent as they were, they might have had a slim chance to move on. But I think that chance has been dashed. I believe it'll be the Paradox and the Plymouth moving on. We'll have to take a look again in just a second. These have been some of the cleaner finishes so far, even if not the fastest, because usually we have at least one racer who somehow ends up on their back, either it be because of the ramp or something else. But all 4 racers did finish. And it is the Paradox and the Plymouth moving on. Wonderful efforts, by the other racers. But now we have our finals for today. The Paradox, the Off-Track, the Plymouth, and the CN. The CN and the Plymouth start out in the front row, but the CN and the Off-Track are trying to pull away. In fact, the Off-Track has the inside lane, trying to spin out the Plymouth, so far unable to do so. And now the Cadillac is trying to pull away while the other 3 are fighting for second place. In fact, I think the Plymouth was slowing the other 2 behind him down. So the Cadillac is taking full advantage of that, trying to gain as much of a lead as they can, and now they approach that hill, and almost a relatively clean jump, but they did bounce a little bit after landing. They did finish in first though, and that, between the Paradox and the Plymouth, that was a close one. They were coming in hot, fighting for that second place position, but I think the Paradox had his nose or his back end out in front of the Plymouth, allowing him to finish in second. In previous tournaments, the nose block right before the finish has been one of the most popular moves we've seen racers do. And it was his back end after bouncing off the wall. He saw the Plymouth coming, and he took the shape of his vehicle to his advantage and stopped the Plymouth from passing him at the last moment. So now it is the Paradox who has the better odds of moving on compared to the Plymouth. But right now the Plymouth is in the front row with the insider lane, and they take advantage of it and start out in first as they go down the rest of the track. while the other three are fighting in a little bit of a traffic jam going around that turn, which is very dangerous because they could lose a lot of speed as a result. But now here they're all coming into the traffic jam now, and now it is the off-track out in first. It's almost like he's taunting the Plymouth as he goes backwards down the track, up the hill, and he stays backwards going across the finish line. That may be one of the sickest taunts I've seen in a long time. And despite all that speed, somehow the Cadillac CN actually stopped before they crossed. Look at this, they're just staring down the Plymouth while they go up that hill, not even looking where they're going. One of the most dangerous stunts in this tournament. We're going to have to see what caused that Cadillac to slow down to a stop. It looks like after they landed, they went sideways, and that brush up against the wall stopped them completely. That first place finish definitely helps them and keeps them from getting out of this tournament altogether so far. But they will have to pick the pace back up. Because right now, 3 racers are tied with 5, while the off-track has 6. And the off-track, speaking of which, does have a decent-sized lead right now. Somehow, it seems like one racer will take the lead and the other 3 will fight for second place in this tournament, particularly in this group. But now the Cadillac is coming out of nowhere. He's trying to pass the off-track, trying to get inside, so far unable to do so. And now, I think the Cadillac went over the side, and the off-track, no, the Cadillac somehow stayed on the track. It looked like he went clean over the side, and the off-track landed on their side. And the Plymouth is the one who doesn't finish this time around. This is definitely a replay I will have to look at closely. That is one of the craziest saves ever. The Cadillac was going to go over the side, but a lucky bounce kept him on the track. And I think he finished in first despite that jump. That is insane. I thought he was going over the track, but I guess he bounced off one of the posts holding the track up, and he got himself back in. 2 things I hadn't seen in this tournament before up until now. Going off the track, but somehow finding your way back on, and the off-track didn't land on his wheels, and didn't land on his back, but somehow wound up on their side. They did finish upside down, but they were sliding sideways. And now with 1 race to go, it is now the other way around with 3 racers out in front and 1 racer farther behind. Right now in order, it is the Cadillac, the Paradox, and the off-track. But now it is between the Cadillac and the Paradox. As they go around that last turn, the off-track is trying to catch back up to them. The Paradox and the Cadillac go over that hill. Not much passing going on, but once again the Paradox uses the shape and size of his car to his advantage and blocks anyone from passing him. With a finish like that, I believe it'll be the Paradox and the Cadillac moving on. But everyone stayed relatively close to the ground this time around, and the Plymouth was much further behind there. But ladies and gentlemen, we have seen some of the craziest things in this tournament to date. One of the smoothest jumps. One of the greatest saves in the tournament that I have ever seen. And landing in ways no one would expect. This is definitely one of my favorite races in this tournament so far. Let me know which one is your favorite in the comments below. The Cadillac and the Paradox will be the ones moving on. 6 days without an undefeated racer. Let's see if we can get another one, a new one in the 7th.